Based in Silver City, New Mexico, Victoria Chick is a contemporary figurative artist and an early 19th, 20th century print collector. And she's back on Big Blend Radio today to talk about public art and the beginnings of public art and art in public spaces. And apparently, Nancy,
yes,
she is sending us on a story mission for our Love Your Parks tour.
Awesome.
We have quite a list of stories we have to gather as Nancy and I are traveling full-time across the country, documenting every park. That's the whole thing. We went from, hey, we're documenting every single national park unit to now we're just documenting all parks. And with that comes public lands and the communities and the stories in the communities. And our friends have been so kind to send us on all these missions. So every place we go, we have a list of stories we must gather. And Victoria has one. And so she's going to tell us about that today and also talk about public art. So very excited to have her back on the show. And you've got a great article on this, Victoria. It's up on nationalparktraveling.com. And everyone, you'll be able to see it in the January through March 2019 issue of Parks and Travel magazine. But also go to Victoria's website and take a look at her work. It is victoriachick.com. So Victoria, welcome back. How are you?
Well, I'm wonderful, Lisa. It's good to be back. I'm glad you brought this up because I have a mission for you.
Yay! I'm scared.
Yes, I do have a mission. I want you to find and document as many nonprofit art galleries, museums, and public art programs as you can.
Wow.
As many. Okay, so this is like, so this is now getting up to the level of every single park now. So every town we go to, you want us to go to a museum. So like going to an art museum, does it matter if it's contemporary art or if it's historic art? Do you have any limitations?
Hey, the sky's the limit, Lisa. Anything goes. I mean, the main thing is to get to these places and write about them and tell about them because people need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And museums and programs as well. So like if it's a mural program in a community, does that qualify too? Since it's outdoor?
Oh, of course.
Like
of course. Outdoor sculpture, anything art, everything art. Yes.
Okay. And art programs. Yeah, you say public art programs. So would that be something like if it was educational for kids or for adults even?
Yes, I don't see why not. I think all art is important, and when people know about it, they may want to go to these places themselves and experience these kinds of public art entities, programs. Anything goes. So I never want to restrict anything about art because art should be free, and we should be free to find it. So. That's your mission.
It inspires conversation
and makes people think. And I'm very excited about this. Nancy, this is good. We're happy about this. I like it. Yeah, Instagram's going to get very colorful with all the photos we take of all this art as we travel. So I'm loving this. But also, Victoria, you know, it's interesting when we think about art and museums and art programs. And you're based in Silver City, which is this, I mean, it's been, I was going to say blossoming with art, but it's been blossoming with art since, you know, we first went there. I mean, it's been really growing as an art destination, but not just as a destination, but a community. So what is, you know, actually museums change the mold of being, it kind of adds a little more layer of importance when you have like museums being part of the art community and the art makeup of a place.
Well, I think that's true. Definitely, the museum usually deals in art of the past, and it isn't a place where they sell work, but you can go and experience work, excellent work, work that has stood the test of time, generally speaking, over the years. So, a museum is a very enriching thing for any community, and I think in our case in Silver City, what a museum could do for our community, because we're working on one, is to provide a place for kids to see good work. You're not just looking at computer stuff. Although that's important, that's a good art form too. But they can go back and they can look at excellent work of all time periods, because the art that's done today expresses the community feeling today, the milieu in which we live, I guess you'd say. And then art of the past it expresses the history, of why we got where we are today, often. So we borrow from the past to express the future.
And I think when a area gets together and they agree to have an art museum, and they want to portray to the rest of the world that they are an art destination, that is like really saying we are an art destination, and here's our art museum. You know, it's that one step more than having art galleries and calling yourself an art destination. That really certifies it.
It does. And Silver City has some great art galleries, there's no doubt. And the museum doesn't compete with a gallery in any way, because it doesn't sell work. But it draws people here, it draws people into town. Sometimes the art gallery is like a business. They're not open every day, but the museum is open pretty much every day except, the major holidays. So there's always art to look at when anybody comes to town.
I think it's important, period, because, when you're talking about it, looking in the past, that's something, with you being on our shows all the time, we've learned all these different periods and how, like, the last conversation we had, we talked about surrealism, and I didn't really get it, like how that happened, and how, Impressionism helped that, and Dadaism. Am I saying it right? Is it Dadaism?
Yeah.
Dadaism?
The da.
Yeah, but
Dadaism.
Well, but you know what? Because, and I think when you have these visuals and people can see it and hear it as a story, and museums do that really well in regards to interpreting what has happened through the ages and why did this happen. When we talked about Impressionism, and we were looking at Weir Farm at one of our national parks, and you think about, Weir and his work, you start to really understand why people were doing things and how they also bucked the system and said, we're going to do something new, even if you don't like it. And I think that's where, museums and galleries, that there are places where you can get an understanding. Art history sometimes is a very scary topic for people. It's like that, the history book with all the dates in there. You need to know the story, not the scary part.
When I taught art history, I would always get students who had to take the class. It was a requirement, and they came into the class saying, "Oh, this is going to be boring because I hate history. I hate remembering dates. I don't think that's relevant." Blah blah blah. So it was always a joy to me to be able to turn their idea around, and they would oftentimes, when the class was finally over at the end of the semester, they would come and say, "I really enjoyed this class. I understand history more now because I was able to see it visually," and that was always very gratifying.
Yeah, that's what you've done. Like for me, that's what I'm saying. There's this. You snuck art into, the art history part that I always thought was going to be a very difficult, and you had to be a real brain to get it. You snuck that in. Because suddenly I was like, oh, wow, I know all these things. And it's like, it's Victoria's, brought these stories to life, and it's that story that shares that. And that's interesting too. I'm excited about going around and going, because now over the years of, these radio chats and your articles, I have a different take on it. I can look at things in a little bit of a different manner. Now when we go to a museum and I see Escher's work, I go, oh, okay, he was through this design at that point. This is what people were doing, So it's a little bit different for me now. It's looking at a Rembrandt or Picasso is going to be different than 10 years ago for me. That's an exciting thing.
I think that it really does open your mind, and that's not the easiest thing to do. People have this, I either like it or I don't. And then sometimes you actually get to the point where you say, well, all right, it doesn't really matter whether you like it or you don't. It's about knowing why it's there, how it came to be, and what does it mean. And then when you cross to that boundary of, is this my personal taste or not? Then you really get it. Then art is really exciting.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. That's it.
It is. And when people see a slide or a computer image on a screen in a classroom, or they see a picture online in one of your magazines, or when they see a reproduction in a book, it might pique their interest. But I hope that they get encouraged to go to a museum, go to see the actual work or work similar to it, because that's when you really understand. Oftentimes you just can't see the texture, or you can't see the detail as well in many artworks that you see as reproductions. So if anything stirs anybody to go to an actual museum or to go to gallery, I am so happy when that happens.
You know, and when you're seeing it in person, you're getting the sense of place, you're getting the size, you know, and size matters. You know, there's a thing, you know, we've well, you know, you look at, you know, we've talked about that before when the miniatures, you know, the portrait miniatures, and we're not going to really get it in a book because it's bigger now. But if you're in a museum and you can see, wow, look how small it is. How did they do that with the little brush? You know,
you gain a greater appreciation.
Yeah, you really do, because then it's right in front of you, and it's just wow. And you know the artist touched that. That is, so you have this. There's this energy that you get unless you're there, right next to, when you can actually see a Rembrandt. Like, to me, he is one of my all-time favorites, Rembrandt. I have a thing about that, you know, just wow. But to see it in person, I'm like, dude, and no, you're not allowed to touch the painting, but you want to. you want to know he touched it. You know he did, and it's like, you know, his energy is connected there. I know that sounds weird and woo-woo, but there is a sense of, you know, when you walk through a place where it's historic, and you know people walk through, you know, when you go to see petroglyphs, isn't that the same feeling?
Right.
Victoria, the same thing. They were there, and you're connected. So I'm excited about this mission, and I know you're saying that, you know, Silver City working on a museum. That's very, very exciting. So as we travel the country, we're going to report back to you, Victoria. This is what we saw in this community. And, you know, when you think about art and murals, the first phase of our tour, where we spent 3 years traveling and went to communities, we saw a number of communities that murals played a role in saving the town's economy, plays a role in tourism, and this is responsible tourism. This is not harming the environment. This is telling, you know, what's neat is you can drive into a town, say it is, you know, a holiday, and you could take a walk through the town and learn the town's history. You get the sense of place of, you know, like in Exeter is one of my favorite examples for this. This whole downtown, you know, they're an agricultural community, and at this point, here they are near the sequoias. But how do they get people to not bypass their town on their way out of Sequoia National Park? So they started this mural program. There are up to 30 murals in this small historic downtown, and it shares the history. You've got the first, you know, newspaper is painted there. They've got the Sequoia National Park. They've got the rail history. They have the different homesteaders and farmers, the very original, you know, families. They have a mural of all the veterans who fought in World War II and the Korean War, and the pilots, all up there. And when you go through there and you start to read, and they have these little hidden things in there. So like they have like something from the Wizard of Oz hidden in the mural. So people go to really look at the mural to find that little hidden symbol. And so they start to really connect with it. And it has been such a success story.
It's a pretty town.
And it not only, when they were needing that tourism to come in and started this, not only is it a good way of attracting visitors into the downtown to go have dinner or go shopping, but it also beautified the town. And there's this sense of pride that Exeter has when you walk through the streets. People are proud of their community, and they're proud of their murals and their history. So that's another role that I think I'm excited to see that as we travel. These communities that are changing up and going through this renaissance. Yuma, Arizona, you know that. They've got a whole huge mural program happening now. And they have these mural artists coming from all over the world coming in to Yuma and painting the murals. And not just in the downtown, the Del Sol Market across from the historic Coronado Motor Hotel. You should see this beautiful, it looks like she's like a goddess. You know, she's holding like a vermilion flycatcher butterfly, and bird and flowers, and she's like the cactus goddess or something, like the goddess of the Sonoran Desert, you know, beautiful, like a mermaid along the wall. So that area is just, I'm excited. I'm ready to go. Good. I know. So this is interesting.
Well,
so
I'm excited to get. I'm looking forward to getting your reports. So we definitely getting your reports. So
this is going to be so much fun. I also want to talk about your article, Art in Public Places, which is all connected to our mission. I didn't realize, thinking about art in public places when it first started, the first thing I thought about public art is murals. But apparently this goes way, way back when.
Well, it does. And what we consider a lot of public art today, because it does attract tourists worldwide. A lot of that art was developed for, you know, at the request of like one person, like a king, a pope, a cardinal, a pharaoh. And we look at it now because these places are open to us through our excavations of archaeological sites and so forth. But a lot of what we consider to be a public art was never meant to be public when it was done.
Oh,
but it's neat. It's really neat that we can see it now. Definitely. And I would say probably most of the work that you see outdoors, which is definitely in the public area, was really done by some guys, some ruler who wanted to prove to people, or to show people, or to declare to people how great he was. You know, what his accomplishments were. He won a battle, or he hunted lions, that kind of thing. So it does go way back, and that kind of attitude toward decoration or embellishment of the outdoors lasted until probably the 17th century. Because in the 17th century, things changed. Things changed from a religious standpoint. They changed from a battle standpoint. You saw the first personal kind of art of the lower people banding together to form democracy, in Holland especially, where you would, instead of having one person, you had a group of people, a town council, say, who would decide what statues were going to be erected, and they were erected for the public, you know, to celebrate somebody's achievement or somebody's heroic deed. So that kind of art everything was sort of informational, I'll say. It wasn't just done for the beauty of it, although that entered into it.
It's like the legacy, documenting a legacy.
It's making a statement about something that occurred, and we're going to put it here in the public so you don't get to forget.
I know. Look at me. Yeah. Look at me. Yeah, but that's how many people, you know, especially, you know, through history, it's like, what's your legacy going to be? You know, who am I? Me, myself, and I.
There was a lot of narcissism, I guess.
There really was.
It hasn't quit. You know, it hasn't quit. It never quit. So anyway.
And now today we don't know what to do with half the statues, and we're all arguing about them.
I always think that's
and that's the sad thing, because this is history. We can't forget it's history, and whether we like that history or not, that the people that put it there, it meant a lot to them. It meant a great deal to them. So I always, it makes me very sad when I see public art being torn down or disrespected.
Yeah, because it's, it's also a reminder to how things have changed, know?
Yes.
But I like statues because, you're right, there is a bit of narcissism there because they're always bigger and they're always on a pedestal. And, you rarely look down at a statue. You're always looking up at it, So
That's
it's like,
true.
Look at me.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that because I did mention in my article the statue or the grouping, sculptural grouping of the Burghers of Calais that was done by Auguste Rodin. And he had originally intended that to be at ground level. And of course, there was a controversy about it at the time, and they wound up. Number one, they really didn't like it because it wasn't heroic enough, and the people looked, just like everybody else. And but they put it on a pedestal, and but finally they put it at ground level, and that's where we wanted it to be because the Burghers of Calais had given up their lives essentially to save the citizens of Calais, and they were willing to be hung by the King of England, who had been attacking Calais, in exchange for the king, going away and releasing everybody else. So stopping the war effort there. So anyway, they show them, really haggard and worried and with ropes around their necks, and they're standing on the ground. They're probably larger than life, but the people, anybody coming to watch them, can be next to them, right next to them, and really feel a part of the group. So I think it was neat. But you're right. On almost every other statue that I can think of, it is on a pedestal.
Yep. Yeah, it is a look at me. It's up there, and you have to look up high.
Yeah.
There's some very interesting sculptures and that Linda Kassam, the food, wine, shopping diva and travel writer. She went on a Viking cruise a couple years ago, actually a year ago, and went to Czechoslovakia. And it was this Christmas market cruise where you go to, and I think that's really fascinating. But she went to Berlin, and Berlin has gone through so many changes. But when she was in Czechoslovakia, they the Czech Republic. Let me get that correct. It had also really changed, and she was in Prague, and she went into the Old Town area, and public art is starting to happen there too. And they have a new public art display, and there are these giant bronze babies crawling. And there's a stink happening over it. There's like a division, and some people love it and some people really hate it, and it's just what it is. And so she's like, I don't know how long they're going to last. I don't know if they're still there, but I'll send you a photo of them because it's trippy. I mean, they are trippy. Big babies with big heads. I mean, they look like alien babies. And they're crawling on the floor. I mean, this is outside. And so this is just an interesting thing. But like you say, art is free. And so part of your article talks about some people don't like what's happening, what's being put there in the public.
Yeah, I don't know. But there is something about art that is authentic and that has come from somebody's heart, that whether a person likes it or not, most people tend, even if they don't like it, to leave it alone because it's art, and it's with a capital A, and they sense that even if they don't like it. So I think that's very interesting. It's like in areas where there's lots of graffiti on walls and stuff, those walls are generally bare, or they're boxcars or whatever that are being decorated by somebody who is making an artistic statement. However, there's also destructive graffiti that goes on certain things from time to time. I've noticed that in areas where there are murals that are done by community people, like they are here in Silver City, that we don't have a graffiti problem. That because in our town, the murals are supervised by a professional artist, but they're all done by kids in the community. They're executed by the kids, so they're really wonderful, and we don't have a graffiti problem here.
I love that because they're part of it. Yeah, they're part of it.
Yeah.
Part of that community pride.
And whether they've participated in that mural or not, other kids respect it. Other adults respected, people coming into town respect it, because it does, like you said, like Exeter, it does beautify the town.
Mhm. And it just tells that story. And
welcoming.
It's very welcoming, and it gives someone like, oh, I want to walk around the town, and I love that because we want people to take walks. We want people to get a breath of fresh air, get out of the car, take your phone and close it, stop it, and just look, and experience it. Now they have some program where people are painting rocks and putting them around town, and you find the rocks. It's like, but to me, it's creative. It's fun. That's fun.
Well, it gets you out and about within your community. And it also, if there's something that you look at that it's not your cup of tea, you don't like it, it's mostly that you probably don't understand it. And if you take the time to read about it and understand it, then you have a second viewpoint of it. And it might not be something that you buy and put in your home, but it's not something that you're going to say, oh, tear it down.
Right.
One piece that really, to this day, still sits with me was in Ludlow, Colorado, where the Ludlow massacre happened. And so these women and kids lived underground while all this drama was going on. And so they put a sculpture of the women and kids, and they died under there. But because they were under, you couldn't see them, so they did a sculpture of them above, and you're standing there, and it's heavy. It's heavy on the heart, but it allows you to put the face to that they're not forgotten. These people are not forgotten, and I think that goes into the memorial side. I know we've talked about memorials, and I think there's something. These sculptures, there's a children's memorial garden here in Tucson. I know I've talked about this on a show a couple of weeks ago because it just really hit home for me. Like it just, it's heavy, but we need to have these places. This children's garden had these amazing sculptures, and it's part of the public art that we have all over here. And it was a children's memorial garden, but it was a memorial garden for children that have been murdered. And
oh gosh.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, but really, how important is that for us to help prevent that? And, and it was so beautifully done, so magical. And there's a vermilion flycatcher bird that has taken that territory as his own. So he's like the gatekeeper.
He really kind of leads you around.
Yeah, he does. But it's so, it's just beautifully done. And it's very comforting there, actually, at the same time as being heart heavy. And I think that art plays a role in that. They had poetry. This little boy on the magic carpet ride, as part of the sculptures, absolutely beautiful. And it reminds you that, the kids are flying up there. They're up there, and they're still connected. And there's this beauty to that. So it's, that's an interesting role.
About public art, it can cover so many bases, so many places, so many reasons. Not all of it has to be heavy. We're used to seeing public statues that are memorials, but beyond that, there's art just up to be joyful. There's art to be surprising. There's art to make your trip easier when you're on the highway. I mean. And you only see it for a millisecond if you're driving, or if you're taking a bike path or something, and you come to a sculpture. Some people have it, will pause and look at it. Others will just drive by. So you never know how it's how the viewer is going to be affected by it. But I think there's a lot of variety, a lot of reasons why the artist produces a work to go outside, because the artist wants to say something to the public. The artist wants to maybe lift you up when you see the work, and generally speaking, well, except for murals use a certain kind of paint, but the other kinds of public art seem to be made out of steel or concrete or some ceramic tiles and one. It's some things that won't get ruined by or the weather, for instance, or they can be cleaned off, And I think it's amazing that so many ideas can be expressed in so few materials.
It's amazing, travel writer Debbie Stone. She covered a lot of ground in the Midwest this year, and Detroit and Cleveland and Canton, Ohio, blew my mind in regards to public art, not only in murals, but these sculptures like Detroit. I had no idea the Midwest was so heavy in public art. I mean, huge. Yes. It really is. And these massive sculptures. I mean, massive. That big one with the stamp, the free stamp.
Yeah.
That is huge. And I think it was back, General Motors days and all of those days of, there was a change going on around the country, and the Midwest was in the hub of it all. Yep. So it's exciting. I can't wait to go to Detroit.
Kansas City is another place where there's a lot of public art, and one of the most famous ones is a giant shuttlecock, like for badminton, out on the lawn of the Nelson Gallery down near the Country Club Plaza. And it's I've done a lot of postcards that that was done by Oldenburg, Klaus Oldenburg, but. Wow. When I grew up there, it wasn't that way. There was very little contemporary public art. Most of it was historical, and it was always appreciated. But it has blossomed into having a lot of public art because it has so many boulevards, and that's where most of the placement is.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because when you think. It is telling the story again. And you were talking about, also when you're traveling, you'll see something. Okay, so out near you in Las Cruces is that giant roadrunner. I love the giant roadrunner. And he's made up of all these things to be recycled, all these computer parts and things like that. So there was a statement of not throwing things in a landfill, let's create art out of it instead.
Right.
It's really
and he's been reconstructed at least once since we've lived in New Mexico. He's wearing out, and after being up for a long time, probably a decade, he was getting worn out. So the artist recreated him. So he's still there, but he's got new parts.
That's cool. Really cool. Now I want to talk about the Tilted Arc because. Because some of this goes into being like architectural as well. Like when we were in Hollister, California, they have an art walk, and it's also architectural. So there's this one that you go through, like here's the Victorian era, Gothic, and all these different architectural styles. But then part of the art thing is it's really neat. Some of it is like you're going under a tunnel under the street, and they've painted on the inside of the tunnel. And but then at the courthouse, they did this. Like etching at the top of the courthouse building, like the ceiling, the roof part of it as you're going in. And it's this contemporary style. And then there's sculptures of people that are part of the community. And some kids did a totem pole, it's cool.
Right.
So there's all these different things. And of course, murals and mosaics, and people are painting the electrical boxes and things. But it was interesting how this now etching part goes into this architectural design kind of thing.
Right.
And I don't know all the correct terms, but this is what's interesting to me about the Tilted Arc is because this is more on it's art, but it's architectural art. Would you call it that, or an installation?
Well, it's definitely an installation, and it was designed to be specifically installed on that site. So, and I'm sure they went before committees and so forth. I don't think they actually got a lot of public input, because there was when it was installed. And let me say what the Tilted Arc is to start with here. It was a steel, Corten steel, the material which over time changes color based on the weather mostly and wearing, rusting. So it was 12 feet tall, and it was 120 feet long, and it had a curve to it, and it went across. It was installed across this plaza, an open area plaza in front of a public building in New York. And even before it was totally installed, people were complaining because they were used to leaving for lunch and going to another building, cutting across the plaza. Now this Tilted Arc, public art, is blocking their way. They have to go around it, and they weren't happy about that.
Forced exercise.
Yeah, there's a little more exercise here. But there were also some complaints that it was so big, and if they were leaving it after work, say, it might be dark in New York in the winter at 5 o'clock, and so they said it was a good place for muggers to lurk and so forth, and they didn't feel safe with it there. Anyway, they thought it was a menace and inconvenient. So they started this big letter writing campaign. One of the people that was very eloquent in his letter writing was a judge who was being blocked by a tube on his way to lunch. So anyway, the people that had approved it said, okay, well, we'll move it. Well, that set the artist off, because he designed it to go right there. He said it wouldn't look good anywhere else. And as they did move it, he was going to, deny that he ever made it. He was going to dissociate himself from it, and he didn't want his name to ever be used in connection with it. So they wound up, or he wound up suing the group who said they were going to move it. He lost his case. He filed an appeal, and he lost that. And so the thing was removed, and it was cut up into 3 pieces and taken to the scrap dump, wherever that is in New York. Anyway, but he got an incredible amount of publicity out of this, and artists were outraged across the world because they felt like his work was being disrespected. It was more than that. He had put a lot of effort into this. His thought. They were trying to change his location. Anyway, there was a big uproar about it. It was written up in lots of art magazines and in newspapers at the time. So.
Wow.
None of the questions that were raised about artistic integrity and public art were ever resolved, I don't think, as a result of that incident.
Wow. See?
But it just sort of goes to show that if you're going to do public art, it probably pays to get the public involved before you do it.
Yeah,
right. Because his
attitude was that the public should have no say in it at all. That it was his project, and he was highly offended that it was inconveniencing anybody, or anybody would say it was inconveniencing them.
But wasn't he paid for it? I mean, if you're as an artist, if you're paid to do the work,
oh yes, absolutely,
then it's really not yours anymore.
Yeah.
Well, no, and that's a can of worms too, because
it is.
Some people are trying to say that if public art aside for a second, if you buy a painting from artist artist, and then you sell that painting to somebody else. Now, it may have appreciated. Now, the original artist should get a cut of whatever the resale value is. But I mean, as you go on down the line, and it changes hands over maybe long periods of time, that gets really complicated. And it would make, I think it would backfire, because it would make people leery about buying a piece of work.
Yeah.
Especially a big collector who is doing it for, it's possible future value. You know, they're buying it because it's investment. And there's a lot of people that do that. So I think it would actually cut down sales for the artist.
I think it makes it too complicated, and I think that you should also you've got to let it go. You can't hold on to every little thing in life, you know. And I think when it's the same thing with music, you can go and listen to music on a radio, and you're not paying the radio station, but you do get to listen to their ads. But the musician has to let that go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, because even
he's getting royalties over how many times it's played.
Yeah, there's something like that, but it's still. I mean, there's that whole system of that, but there's a level of how much are you going to own of everything, and that's with anything. You can't own all of it if you're going to do it. It's weird. The art thing is difficult, because it's like, okay, you can write an article, and if you use someone's quote that they've said and that enhanced your article, should you pay Teddy Roosevelt for using his quote?
I'm sure his estate is keeping track of that.
I know, right? You know what I mean? It's that kind of it ends up creating a whole business for somebody else, and then called the middleman, and they make the more money than the musicians or the artists in the middle. I mean, they're on the outside, and so. That's all it does, and I think there should be protections, and I think everyone should get what they deserve in regards to, you know, I've painted this painting, but how do you keep track of a painting going from one person to the next? I mean,
no.
It's like today with certain politicians using people's music at their rallies, and then the musicians say, no, you can't use my music.
Yeah,
that's happening all over
That's
the
licensing.
place.
You're not supposed to be doing that.
You know?
Well, that's not cool. It just is really a different thing, isn't it? Fascinating. I love this mission. I love talking about public art. I could talk about it all day long, because it's so fascinating. You know, we have some interesting things here. Nancy and I are like looking at some of the art, and we're like, well, what were they thinking on that? And
it's the snake bridge.
Yeah.
See, snake.
That's, dude. When you think about public art, and you were talking about how it is part of the highways here. In Tucson, there's a bridge that is a rattlesnake, and you go through the mouth to walk across the highway.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we got to go find it.
Yeah.
But there's some interesting things. There's this whole art trail. There's a 131-mile trail system here, all connected. You could go down south to Green Valley and still be connected to Oro Valley through this trail. It's amazing. So people can run, jog, walk, you know, some of it is horse riding, some of it's part of the Juan Bautista Dam, the National Historic Trail. It's pretty cool. But they've also done all of this public art. So when you're walking, you're going to see sculptures in these places. And that was part of the Children's Memorial Garden. And here it is. It's connected to the trail, or the loop, as they call it here. And there's art all connected. And then I found out Oro Valley has it's like 175 public art pieces.
That's amazing.
In this little desert community. And you're like, wow. And so there's, you know, in shopping centers, in public buildings, there's paintings. And then there's some things that I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at. And it's interesting. And then we start saying, well, this is what we think it is. And then you go home and you research it online, and you find out that's not at all what it was. You have no clue, do you? You know, so, but it creates this curiosity, and you start to explore an area, and you start to think in different ways. And like Nancy said, whether or not you like it, so what? It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it's interesting. Like the highway department has funds specifically for embellishing overpasses and stuff and walls that are, especially when they go through cities and where they have a noise abatement wall, and they try to make it attractive. But these smaller communities, do they have a committee? Is it paid for by taxes? Is it does the committee get together and people submit ideas? I mean, there's all the kinds of different ways it could be done. But I think it's wonderful that you've got this trail that goes through a lot of different communities really in that area, and that every community seems to have something going in as far as public art.
It's amazing because it's bringing in the health aspect. It's creating nature corridors for wildlife, and then it's got the art connected. And so there's this wow factor, and that's when we're going around and knowing that we're going back on the tour, and when we're realizing the importance of documenting every park, not just national parks. Of course, we're going to still finish our quest of that, but it's this reality of and talking to a park ranger friend of ours, she was saying you need parks within 15 miles of your home, 15 minutes. You need to be able to within that time frame. Otherwise, people aren't going to go because of society's time and gas and all of that good stuff.
Sure.
So these kinds of things, when you start to realize like, oh, and now you'll take a little step further, you start to really want to explore. And I realized I could get sucked into just writing public art of Tucson and never be done. And I think that is an amazing thing. No, really, it's incredible. Just all the murals that they have. And what you were talking about, I didn't even know that they were doing all that with the highways. But this has opened my eyes to seeing things instead of just driving from A to B. There's a level of being observant now. And you'll see like just little decorative things, just even the slightest thing. And you'll just like, wow, that's so much better than not having anything artistic attached to it. Just even on the same trail up in Oro Valley, the benches are cactus. They're designs of cactus blossoms, and all kinds of little things like that. And I think that improves the community.
It just is welcoming.
It's quality of life.
Like we care about what the rest of the world thinks.
Yeah,
so, and I find that welcoming.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's very cool.
Yeah, it changes your attitude, I think, when you're driving. To have this. Whenever I go, I could go from Silver City to San Diego often, and I love going through Tucson because there's like eye relief. I'll go on mental relief and eye relief because the bridges are so beautiful, and each bridge that I go under has some different kind of decoration on it. Some of it is narrative about the history. Some of it's just about the kind of plants that are in the area. It's always interesting, and it's a relief, I think, for the eyes and the tiresomeness of traveling a long distance.
Well, and one of those has got a snake attached to it.
Yeah, I'm going to send you the link for that. You got to go see the snake. The rattlesnake shake,
I've missed that one, and I do want to see it now.
Yeah, I know. And you got to go stop by Yuma and see some of their new murals. They're really, really cool. Just well done. I mean, world class. I'm not kidding. I mean, and people. I mean, these artists coming from around the world. I think that's cool.
It's amazing.
Just having that, and they've done a lot also with kids being part of it too. Just the local, like what Silver City's doing too. So a lot of amazing stuff happening out there. Everyone, again, Victoria's article is in the January through March 2019 Parks and Travel magazine. I said the 2019 word. See, time flies. And also you can see her article. Just go to nationalparktraveling.com and just type in public art and you'll find it there. And you can also follow our Mission Possible story series. Just go to loveyourparkstour.com and you'll be able to follow from there, and you'll see it under our Mission Possible series. And we'll be mapping our public art destinations as we travel. You'll be able to just follow the map and see where we've been. And in completing this mission for Victoria. I love this. All the museums we're going to go to, and I'm very,
I know
very
you'll have
excited.
fun. Yes, I know you'll have fun.
I'm going to be calling you going, okay, we looked at this, Victoria. Help. What is this? There's going to be all kinds of things that come out of this. I'm very excited about it. Also, everyone, keep up with us at bigblendradio.com and stay tuned to Victoria. Go to her website, victoriachick.com, to keep up with her and also all her artwork. Victoria, your song today is from our friend Wally Lauder. You know we have to play his music.
Oh, yes.
Since we met him in Silver City and he's here in Tucson. And this song is called Heart of the City because that's what it just feels like. That's what art and music is, and all kinds of things happen in the heart of the city.
That's right.
Yes. I know. Wally's always got a little romance going somewhere. That's his music. He's always got something that way. Yeah. Okay. But here it is, Heart of the City, and keep up with Wally at wallylauder.com. Thanks so much for joining us, Victoria.
Thank you.
And thank you for the mission.
Care. Yes, thank you.
I was deep in the heart of the city, riding a metal serpent through an underground maze. Careful not to make eye contact, but watching people just the same, as we slithered and bumped to the next stop along the way. I followed the crowd through the automatic doors. We paraded up the escalator like parts on an assembly line, up to the next level and walked along. Between the tracks, keeping time. There's a crowd of people waiting for the next train, but they were in no hurry. Some were even swaying. Some had their eyes closed, most kept them open, watching four guys in the middle of it all. These guys had some moves, and I watched them going. Feet were shuffling, fingers snapping, arms were flowing. And as I got closer, and as I got closer, and as I got closer, I could hear them singing. Bop shabop, bop shabop. It was like a big heart was beating down there, and I forgot that I was on my way to somewhere else. Forgot that I was anywhere other than there, and the only thing that mattered. Bop shabop, bop shabop. My love must be a kind of blind love. I can't see anyone but you. And they were singing about the stars and the moon and gardens and love in a tunnel underground. And they kept on coming back to that refrain. They kept on coming round. Bop shabop, bop shabop, bop shabop, bop shabop. Could have stayed all night in paradise, but they finished the song and I remembered I was on my way to somewhere. So I went up the stairs, outside, into the warm night air. Onto the streets of the city, beautiful city swimming with people. and I made my way under the nighttime sky. Are the stars out tonight? I don't know if it's cloudy or bright, 'cause I only have eyes for you. I only have eyes for you. Da-ba-da-ba, da-ba-da-ba.